Hi everyone. This is going to be a video over chapter 9. This is for week 6. And so let's go over what there is. This is the objectives on your left, just like it has been. And there are 5 objectives, so probably there's going to be 4 videos is what I'm thinking. First objective, let's understand the strategies of business communicators in conveying negative news, apply the 3x3 writing process, and avoid legal liability. Objective number 2, distinguish between the direct and indirect strategies in conveying unfavorable news. Number 3, explain the components of effective negative messages, including opening with a buffer, apologizing, showing empathy, presenting the reasons, cushioning the bad news, and closing pleasantly. Objective 4, apply effective techniques for refusing typical requests or claims, as well as for presenting bad news to customers in print or online. And then the last objective is describe and apply effective techniques for delivering bad news within organizations. Coming in is at the first page right behind the objectives page. And this is Crisis Rock Carnival Corporation and Rattle Cruise passengers. It's been a nightmare. Carnival Splendor cruise ship became crippled after a fire in the engine room knocked out all systems. There's been no food, no power, no electricity, no flushing toilets, and there's nearly 3,300 passengers on Spam, Pop-Tarts, and canned food flown in by Navy helicopters. And the disabled ship was towed towards San Diego. CEO had a press conference and apologized, noted that the safety of our passengers and crew is their top priority. However, the Costa Concordia accident in Italy that killed 32 passengers received a different scale. No amount of apology or compensation is likely to turn the afflicted travelers into repeat customers. Although the world's largest cruise line will recover in the short term, it is facing staggering litigation, falling stock price, and earnings losses, if I could read. So, Carnival Corporation obviously said, I'm very sorry it happened. When you have 100 ships out there, sometimes unfortunate things happen, but as I said, it was an accident. We as a company do everything we can to encourage the highest safety standards. The top executive promised that Carnival would take care of passengers, crew, and victim. You have an assignment that you will have to write a letter regarding something similar to this, so kind of keep this in mind, as well as these critical thinking questions will help you. Suppose you made an honest mistake that could prove expensive for your employer or internship provider. Would you blurt out the bad news? What are some of the techniques you could use if you had to deliver bad news? Carnival Corporation's chairman and CEO, Mickey Arison, was criticized by the Wall Street Journal and others for remaining very silent during the extreme crisis in Italy. And how did he handle that? So there's a way to try and communicate negative news effectively. As it states here, bad things happen in all businesses, and we know that. At Carnival, technical trouble and human error, bad weather, and virus outbreaks on board can ruin cruises. Other businesses, goods are not delivered, products fail to perform as expected, service is poor, billing gets messed up, or customers are just misunderstood. You may have to write messages ending business relationships, declining proposals, explaining service outages, refusing requests for donations, terminating employee, that type of thing. Whether you're criminal justice, whether you're medical, because medical you could run into patients that are not happy about either the diagnosis or they think they've been not taken care of, all kinds of things. So there's always a reason that you might run across, whatever profession you're in, at having to communicate negative news. All right, so a horse meat scandal that rocked Europe in 2013 affected IKEA when inspectors discovered traces of edible equine in the company's Swedish meatballs. The housewares giant quickly apologized. We take this issue very seriously and apologize for the current situation. Horse meat from authorized slaughter is in itself not dangerous. However, we do not tolerate any other ingredients than the ones stipulated in our recipes or specifications. It is important to us that customers can trust the products we sell are high quality, safe, and healthy. What did IKEA hope to achieve by issuing the statement? This is just some food for thought. Okay. No, they don't say that they didn't know it was in there. I don't know how it got in. They don't provide an explanation. But what do you think that they were hoping to achieve? Okay, and so here this says just what I said. Truth must, everyone must deliver bad news. Bad news disappoints, irritates, angers receiver sometimes. So it has to be careful. So we're going to learn when to use the direct strategy. Okay. Yeah, correct. It's still not doing what I want it to, is it? And when to use the indirect strategy. So there's two strategies you need to be familiar with. So goals in communicating negative news. The goals outlined in figure 9.1 are ambitious. We're going to look at it in a minute, but we're not always successful in achieving all of them. Many senders have found that strategies and techniques you're about to learn helpful in conveying disappointing news. So we've been going over this 3x3 writing process most of the quarter. It's going to continue here. Certain techniques can help you deliver bad news sensitively, beginning with 3x3 writing process. So phase 1, pre-writing, analysis, anticipation, and adaptation. You need to analyze the bad news. So that's one thing. Anticipate its effect on the receiver. I'm just going to stay away from that yellow. Are you laughing at me yet? That's okay if you are. When Microsoft launched its first wide-scale layoff, administrative glitch caused it to pay more severance pay than intended to some of the employees. After the mistake was discovered, Microsoft sent a bad news letter bluntly asking the ex-workers to return the money. How well do you think that letter went over? Is that an insult to injury? We're going to go over this chart in a minute. Microsoft then demanded the return of $4,000 to $5,000 in severance pay. Some employees had already spent the money. Yeah, I would have probably. Others were planning their futures with it. Sender a bad news message had not considered the effect it would have on its readers. After the letter seeking repayment began to surface on the web, Microsoft reversed their course and allowed the workers to keep the overpayment. How do you think Microsoft could have done this better? So people are already ticked off by the time they said, sorry, just keep it. So goals in conveying unfavorable news. Like I said, you have an assignment that you have to convey unfavorable news. So this is something you really should pay attention to. Explain clearly and completely. Project a professional image. And here's an explanation of all these. Conveying empathy and sensitivity. Be fair. Maintain friendly relations. So you need to consider all those when you're trying to do unfavorable news. When you have bad news to convey, one of your first consideration is how is it going to affect the person you're giving it to? It depends on whether or not the disappointment will be mild. Then here's when you're going to do the direct approach. Okay. Small rate increase in newspaper web subscription can be announced directly. Bad news is serious or personal. Consider techniques to reduce the pain. Microsoft's bad news letter should have prepared the reader, given the reasons for the payback request, offered alternatives, and sought goodwill. Choose your words that show you have respect. Best channel to deliver bad news. Negative situations, you'll be dealing with a customer. You want to retain the goodwill of a customer. A letter on company stationery would be more impressive than email. Yes, you put it in an envelope and you mail it to somebody. All right. You really have to be careful when you're doing bad news. Here's the other part. Phase 2, research, organization, and composition, or drafting. Jot down all the reasons you have. Explain the bad news. 4 or 5 reasons prompted your negative decision. Concentrate on the strongest and safest ones. Avoid using any of the weak reasons because people may jump on the weak ones as opposed to stronger ones. Include ample explanation of the negative situation. Do not do this. Do not blame somebody or blame anything. I mean, it kind of feels like you're doing a cop-out when you do that. When the United States Post Office delivered damaged mail, their explanation was because the post office handles millions of pieces of mail daily, we must use mechanical methods to ensure proper delivery. Damage can occur if the mail is insecurely enveloped or bulky contents. In other words, they're putting the blame on the sender. It's not our fault, it's the person that mailed it's fault. Not the best way to do things. Editing, proofreading, and evaluating is phase 3, which falls under revising in what you're used to reading over. Read over your message carefully to be sure that it says what you want it to say. It's one of those cases where you probably should write it, put it down, and walk away from it for a couple of hours. Come back and look at it again. If you make any changes, put it down, walk away, come back. Check your wording to make sure you're concise without being rude. If you've overused certain words, check the thesaurus. Read your sentences, see if they sound like conversation and they flow smoothly. Read this out loud. Do not read it with your eyes. Now that may sound funny and you can laugh. When you read just reading and you don't read it out loud, your eyes and your brain feed off of each other and you will read what you think you see, not what is actually there. When you read it aloud, you bring your mouth into the party. And when you bring your mouth into the party, you bring your ears into the party, and then all 4 of you get to join the party and things get written a whole lot better. Pay attention to common mistakes like spelling mistakes, then and then, there and there. I told you earlier in the quarter, a way to remember this is heir is a person like an heir to an inheritance. Things, furnitures don't inherit money. People inherit money, so an heir. Here is a place, and that's what there is. There is a place, and if that helps you remember it, then great. Long time ago, that's how I did it. If your word processing program checks grammar, be sure to investigate those squiggly underscores. Finally, evaluate your message. Is it too blunt? Is it too subtle? Have you done it? Deliver the bad news clearly and professionally. Avoiding legal liability and conveying negative news. In other words, be careful what you say. If you have a company attorney, write the letter, run it past the attorney first, or attorneys, and let them look at it. Because if you've messed up and there is going to be some legal liabilities in it, one of their first questions out of their mouth is, why didn't you let us see it? So if you have a corporate attorney or an attorney your company uses, depending on how bad is, run it by them first. You should be alert to 3 causes of legal difficulties: abusive language, careless language, and the good guy syndrome. So let's look at some abusive language: calling people names, deadbeat, crook, quack. Defamation is the legal term for any false statement that harms an individual's reputation. When the abusive language is written, it's called libel. When it's spoken, it's called slander. So calling somebody a deadbeat, if they wanted to get nasty, they could. To be actionable, like in a lawsuit, abusive language must be false, damaging to one's good name, and published, written or spoken within the presence of others. Therefore, if you're alone with Jane Doe and you accused her of accepting bribes, selling company secrets to competitors, she can't sue you. Her reputation wasn't published and her reputation wasn't damaged. However, if anyone heard the words or if they were written, you might be legally liable. In a new wrinkle, you may now be prosecuted if you transmit a harassing or libelous message by email, posted on social networking sites such as Facebook and Twitter. Such electronic transmissions are considered to be published. So be careful. Social media in a case like this can be your enemy as opposed to being your friend. You may incur liability for messages sent through its computer system by your employees. So yeah, if you're a manager or a supervisor and you have an employee that sends something through Facebook or Twitter about a customer that he or she's really ticked at because the customer's having a bad day, so they're calling you guys and they're mad at you because something didn't work right like they thought they would, and you are abusive to them in an email, or you decided to post it where other people can see it, um, yeah, you're in trouble. You could be in trouble. That's why companies are increasing their monitoring of both outgoing and internal messages. Off the cuff, casual email conversations among employees are exactly the type of messages that tend to trigger lawsuits. Yeah, even though the email is staying within the company, if the customer you're honking off decides to subpoena the emails and the messages that you have, the internal messages, and they find out that they're being talked about wrongly on those internal messages, and they see it as a result of the warrant to look at your messages, that could be considered liable depending on how the customer wants to. And then your company's put in the position potentially of maybe settling out of court rather than have their company name spread out all over the newspapers or wherever else it's going to do. I mean, this customer is going to be mad enough at you that she's going to do she is going to do their own damage against you. Um, but you don't want to anger a customer. It's never a good thing. I always do the what if. Okay, careless language. As the marketplace becomes increasingly litigious, that means people become lawsuit happy. We must be certain that our words communicate only what we intend. Here's an example. Take the case of a factory worker that's injured in the job. His attorney subpoenaed company documents and discovered a harmless letter sent to a group regarding a plant tour. These words appeared in the letter. Although we are honored at your interest in our company, we cannot give your group a tour of the plant operations as it would be too noisy and dangerous. Okay. Now you have a factory worker that got hurt. You won't let somebody else come in a tour because because plant operations are dangerous. See where I'm going? The court found in favor of the worker, inferring from the letter that working conditions were indeed hazardous. The letter writer did not intend to convey the impression of dangerous working conditions, but the court accepted that interpretation, and so the worker won the lawsuit. The good guy syndrome. Most of us hate to have to reveal bad news. That is, to be the bad guy. To make ourselves look better, to make the receiver feel better, and to maintain good relations, we are tempted to make statements that are legally dangerous. Consider the case of a law firm interviewing job candidates. One of the firm's partners was asked to inform a candidate that she was not selected. Partner's letter said, although you were by far the most qualified candidate we interviewed, unfortunately, we have decided we do not have a position for a person of your talents at this time. And about 3-4 years ago, I actually heard of a lawsuit that this actually occurred this way. To show that he personally had no reservations about this candidate and to bolster the candidate, the partner offered his own opinion. In other words, he put in his own 2 cents. However, he differed from the majority of the recruiting committee. When the rejected interviewee learned later that the law firm had hired 2 male attorneys, she sued, charging sexual discrimination. The court found in favor of the rejected candidate. It agreed that a reasonable inference could be made from the partner's letter that she was the most qualified candidate. That sounds just like the lawsuit I heard about several years ago. 2 important lessons here. First, business communicators act as agents of their organizations. Their words, their decisions, and opinions are assumed to represent those of the organization because you work for them. If you want to communicate your personal feelings or opinions, use your home computer or write on plain paper rather than company letterhead and sign your name without title or affiliation. Okay. Second, volunteering extra information can lead to trouble. Therefore, don't do it. Okay. Just not a good thing. Even some apologies. We're sorry that a faulty bottle cap caused damage to your carpet. May suggest, where do you think is the liability here in what this sentence is right here? Where do you think that liability is? If you said that word right there, you're right. Okay. This is the word that will get you in trouble. All right, so we're at learning objective 2. I'm going to end this video and we're going to pick up right here. Okay. Take care.